Did you find out you have an MTHFR gene mutation and now you're wondering, what diet should I follow? Well, in this video, I share the key nutrients that you need, what to avoid, and dispel a few MTHFR diet myths. Hey, if you're new to my channel, I'm David, and I help people reclaim their lives from brain fog, chronic fatigue, and low self-esteem. Since finding out I had an MTHFR gene mutation about 7 years ago, I've had to make some slight optimizations to my diet, supplementation, and my lifestyle. There's been certain things I've needed to incorporate more of, and certain things I've had to avoid. So in today's video, this is going to be more aimed at flexitarians and omnivores. But if you follow a plant-based diet, it's no problem. You just need to make a different set of accommodations, and you could check out my video on MTHFR plant-based diet. So if you haven't checked out my other videos, in short, I actually found out about my MTHFR gene mutation because I had elevated cadmium and mercury. And so that was actually leading to my debilitating brain fog and chronic fatigue. So it was through testing for heavy metals that I eventually deduced that I had MTHFR. All right, so I don't want to be prescriptive, and food is something that is so subjective, and we each enjoy different types of food. So I'm going to go into the key nutrients that you need to be aware of and cognizant that you're consuming on a regular basis as somebody with MTHFR. All right, so the first one is methionine, and so this is an amino acid found in all proteins, but it's especially rich in animal products. After being activated using ATP, methionine becomes the universal methadonor. So it's extremely important. Low levels of methionine can contribute to a host of issues that I go into in other videos. Next one is, of course, vitamin B12, but not just any vitamin B12. It's going to be methylcobalamin. So you want to have the active form, and then vitamin B9, you're going to have the L5-MTHF or methylfolate, as it's often referred to. And so this is going to recycle homocysteine back to methionine. It's also going to convert homocysteine into glutathione, which is your master antioxidant, and that's going to prevent buildup of heavy metals, toxins in the body. So super important, can't be overstated how important specifically that high quality folate is in your diet. Next one's going to be betaine. So this one is mainly derived from choline. So think of like egg yolks, for example, but it doesn't have to be egg yolks. And the role of that is to recycle homocysteine back to methionine. And then you have, of course, special mention to all the B vitamins that play a huge role in methylation. So, thiamine, so that's going to be vitamin B1, riboflavin, so that's going to be vitamin B2, niacin, pyridoxine, so that's going to be vitamin B6. And so all of these are going to be really important. Even though they're not methyl donors themselves, they still are going to be quite critical to the methylation cycle. Next up is going to be glycine, and so glycine is a buffer for excess methyl groups, so you certainly want to get that. And then lastly, just a couple notable mentions that are involved in supporting the enzymes. So these are going to be the minerals, so things like iron, phosphorus, sulfur, magnesium, potassium, zinc, and vitamin A. And specifically, that's going to be used to produce the enzyme involved in using glycine as a methyl buffer. All right, so keeping in the spirit of you owning your bioindividuality and your diet and your lifestyle, I want to give you some best practices and tips for people with MTHFR as you go about optimizing your diet. So the first one is going to be consuming about 0.5 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. If you're in the process of losing weight, then just choose your ideal body weight and as the base number. So this is going to leave a lot of wiggle room. In my case, I consume about 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. So that ends up being about 150 grams of protein per day. I'm in the process of, I have a more catabolic body type, and I'm also doing a fair amount of strength training, and I want to just build up a little bit of muscle. So that's going to work for me. For other people, they're going to want to do something different, and this is its own bigger topic, but the main takeaway is get enough protein. That's going to be really helpful to have those amino acids. Make an effort to eat nose to tail. So if you do eat animal products, consider eating the bones, the broth, liver. Organ meats are extremely nutritious, very dense in nutrients. And so definitely consider not just eating the breast like we do here in developed Western nations, which is usually just muscle. Consider kind of expanding and broadening the parts of the animal that you eat, because they're going to contribute to a lot of those vitamins and nutrients that I mentioned earlier. Making sure to get a good dose of calcium per day, I would say about 1,000 milligrams. The next one is also going to be around diversifying your carbohydrates. So making sure you're getting legumes, root vegetables, different types of starches in your diet. Of course, if you're on a low carb diet or you're doing some sort of body transformation program, no problem. But once you do get into a state where you're reintroducing these in a way that makes sense for you, having a diverse set of carbohydrates and avoiding processed carbohydrates, especially those with enriched folic acid. So anything like enriched wheat flour is something that you would need to stay away from. The next tip is going to be around dark leafy vegetables, and that's going to go back to the point that I mentioned earlier about increasing your folate, increasing B vitamins, etc. And so in particular, I really like spinach, arugula, kale. It's going to be a little different for everyone, and there are some specific reasons why you would choose one over the other, but unless there's some specific restriction that you have, incorporating dark leafy greens as opposed to like romaine lettuce, iceberg lettuce, these are going to be largely devoid of nutrients. They don't have that much to offer. They're mostly water. Last two tips are pretty straightforward, which is just to incorporate a diverse set of vegetables in your diet on a regular basis. And so having a lot of reds and greens is going to be really helpful. And I would probably estimate that most people are going to need 6 to 9 servings per day. So one hack for this that I use myself is that, if you have a job where you go out a lot or you're very social, and it can be kind of lame to just order a salad at dinner every time you go out. Totally understand the shaming around kind of being that healthy person or whatever. And so what I do is in my morning smoothie, I put a daily fruit and vegetable blend. So that includes kind of superfoods like cracked chlorella cell wall, spirulina, as well as about 22 organic fruits and vegetables. And so that alone, I put a link in the description below to the brand that I use. There's two. I use the Equiforce one, and then VitaForce is one that I've had in the past. And so that's going to really kind of up-level your game and just make it a lot easier to get all those phytonutrients and polyphenols that you're going to need to support that methylation process. And one tip on the greens powders is that a lot of them are going to be including, like, not the ones that I have in the description, but the other ones are going to have like adaptogens and maca and all these superfoods. I really recommend you choose a simple greens powder that just has fruits and vegetables extract, maybe some spirulina, maybe some chlorella, and that's about it. You don't really need to be introducing these adaptogenic herbs all the time into your diet. So that's a topic for another video, but just if you do choose a greens powder, make sure that it's from a reputable company. You can choose the ones in the description below. All right, for some of those more important or critical nutrients, I'll just go into some details and examples. So for folate, and we're talking about the active form of folate, you're going to want to have 2 to 3 servings of leafy greens, liver, or legumes on a daily basis. And so a serving is defined as either 3 to 4 ounces or as 100 grams. And so this is going to be a little bit tricky because you can measure it with like liver, for example. That's pretty easy. However, especially when you're cooking the vegetables, you're probably going to want to consume twice as much than you think because they do shrink quite a bit and they do lose some of those nutrients. So that's just something to keep in mind. Vitamin B12. So here what we're talking about is methylcobalamin, so the form that you can actually use. And I recommend that you supplement with this as well. But one interesting thing about vitamin B12 is that you can stock up on it. And so every 4 to 5 hours, you can stock up on about 1 day's worth of vitamin B12. So if you have a vegan day or plant-based day or just some day where you just choose not to consume any animal products, no problem. You could stock up on that B12 from the animal products in the days that you do consume animal products. So here on the slide are just some examples of ways you can get that B12, which is 4 to 8 grams of liver, really nutrient dense. I know a lot of people don't eat too much liver, but can be very healthy. If you eat seafood, not something I totally recommend if you have MTHFR, but some people do it, especially those with heterozygous. 8 grams of oysters or clams, 12 ounces of meat or poultry. Some people would say milk or cheese. I am dairy free, so I can't advocate for that personally. I think the inflammatory response and the food sensitivities that many people have to dairy are just not worth it. For vegans, I do have a whole video on just how to do this for vegans, but Substitute green or purple lava or nori for the oysters and clams, so you can get that vitamin B12 there. And then substitute black trumpet, chanterelle, or shiitake mushrooms for the meat, so you can actually get it through plants as well. So I'll just leave that tip in there for the days that you are plant-based. All right, so I know I went through a lot, but the main goal there was just simply to allow you to pick and choose how you want to get these vitamins and nutrients. In some cases, and in many cases, I recommend just using food and finding some easy hacks. So in my case, I make sure to put 2 handfuls of spinach in my morning smoothie every day, and that gives me a really big healthy dose of folate. I also supplement with folate, but it really helps to have those food-based sources as well. There are some that I choose to supplement with, and so I want you to pick and choose which ones you eat through food, which ones you just don't maybe want to eat through food, and you can choose to supplement. But ultimately, the choice is for you, and you should enjoy your diet. All right, well, that's it for today's episode of MTHFR FAQ. I hope you got value from this video, and if you did, please hit the like button and consider subscribing to my channel. It's truly an honor to be sharing this information with you, and look forward to being of future value. If you have any additional comments, anything I wasn't able to answer, go ahead and leave them in the comments below. And please check out my other videos on MTHFR just to get more nuanced information on some of the things that I was only able to touch on in this video. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.